So Darshan, as I promised, at 16:05 I would start this webinar, and it's a real pleasure to talk to you again. I'll first introduce myself, and then please you follow on. And of course, the topic today is the biggest challenges in scaling RPA in large organizations. So as you can probably hear from my delightful accent, I'm Irish, I live in Prague, and I've been around enterprise sales for the last 25 years, initially with Intel and Cisco, and then with startups in different areas like social media and even security software, as well as in design to code. I'm now with Pointy as head of sales, and I have to say I've known Pointy for a few years, and I was delighted to get this chance and was kind of trying to get this chance to work in this space. So I'm really glad to be here now and to talk to you, Darshan. So maybe you could introduce yourself and we can get stuck into the questions, and of course people who are watching will be asking some too during that, I hope. So please, if you're listening now, don't be scared to drop us a line and ask us some questions.
Right, and indeed, we would love to have an interactive discussion. Well, thanks, Simon. So just by way of introduction, I'm Darshan Jain, and I've been, I guess, as far as today's conversation is concerned, my background for the last 10 years, I've been in the RPA automation industry right from its origins. And if I get a chance, I'll tell you some interesting stories from the early days before the word even RPA was quite known. Before that, I grew up at Nestle right after business school, spent 7 years at Nestle, learning all kinds of things from marketing to IT to corporate finance, corporate strategy. Moved into banking for the next 5 years at one of the large North American banks, doing a number of assignments there. But then since probably the early 2000s, I've been in operations consulting, especially around financial services, and heavily into process improvement, process management, and of course now automation. So it went from the old days of Lean and Six Sigma, which were big buzzwords in the 90s, and they were adopted in North America in a big way. Then as technology improved about 10 plus years ago, instead of just doing a Lean, which is more mindset, let's apply technology and, of course, good discipline. And that has revolutionized what I'd call your typical back office service industry processing. So today we just take it for granted. Of course, you can open an account at a major bank or get a credit card, and it's literally, if not instant, within an hour, you'll get a reply back. In the old days, which is just 20 plus years ago, that was not the case. You would literally walk into a bank branch, fill out a paper form, and submit it, and then wait for a response, typically by snail mail, and then say, oh, I need some more. Can you come back to the branch? So we're now used to this instant ability, but a lot of work, Simon, has gone into this in the past 10 plus years, which I'm sure we'll get into today. Also, I have been in the past few years teaching on the topic of automation through the business school at the University of Toronto. And that's been very gratifying, helping working professionals and students learn all about this field and again, how the world has changed. So I've been sort of staying active on these. And I get a chance once in a while to talk to folks like yourself about the industry and see what I can pass along. I stay in touch with some of my old clients and see how they're doing. It's always, again, it's a small world when you get into the aspect of automation. So really happy to be here today.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, actually. The stories you've shared with me really helped me getting on board with Pointy much quicker and also understanding the dynamics of the industry. So thanks for that. I suppose it could lead quite nicely, Darshan, into the first question. So as you said, these platforms, have been around 10 years. And some industries have had great success deploying this, and we can talk about banking, financial, insurance. But from what I see and what I hear, not all organizations have adopted the technology with the amount of success that they might have liked. So what do you see as those major challenges that those less successful organizations have had to deal with in scaling their programs? And what could they perhaps do to improve on that?
Yeah, that's a big revelation, I guess. You come up, it's what we are today. Most people will recognize, with Gen AI and AI in general, the hype cycle is still very strong. And of course, it's going to solve everything. AI will do it all. Well, Simon, just go back 10 years, and that's what RPA was. RPA was going to solve everything. And here we are, 10 years later, roughly. And I keep saying 10 years because roughly 2013, 2014 is when the world really, much like November of 22, when ChatGPT came out from OpenAI, the 2013, 2014 was when Blue Prism, which is sort of, again, has the legacy brand, they came on the world scene in a big way after doing a lot of experimentation with at Barclays and the cooperative in the UK. So RPA has delivered, but as you just pointed out, many companies are still struggling. Many have actually been not successful. I dare say they've spent a ton of money, resources, and they don't have a lot to show for it. And executives, CTOs have really questioned their investment in these technologies. Again, there's a segment of that. And then there's the other extreme, which is, oh my God, how the world has been changed by robots in general. So you asked about what are some of these major challenges that struggling organizations have had. In no particular order, I'll rattle off a few that sort of come to mind. A lot of RPA, and I'd say RPA, you could call it IPA, Intelligent Process Automation. You could call it just IA, Intelligent Automation. For this conversation, I'll continue to use a legacy term of RPA. I know some people say that's limiting, but really that's how it all started. So RPA works best when you have an ideal scenario where you have, I would say, homogeneous processes. You have open, secure, but open architecture of your own internal IT. You have people that are well trained and so on. Come on, Simon, let's face it. How many organizations are that ideal? I've seen a lot of mess. We could be talking about big brands like JP Morgan Chase or RBC on the banking side, or MetLife on the insurance side. And when you get down to the back office, it's messy. It just is. It's the nature of the beast. So when you're talking about integrating RPA with legacy architecture, that's where the idiosyncrasies of architecture really start to manifest. Bots don't like to have differences in processes. So the more uniform the process, the better an automation can be. So think about this. You have a process and you design an automation. Oh, but there's an exception. Okay, fine. I'll make an exception loop. If this happens, then do this. If this, then this. Pretty simple. Right? If you've ever done a macro in Excel, it's one of those kinds of things. If you have this value, then do this. If it's less than this, then do that. Fine. You can have 1, 2. Heck, you can have 10. What if you have 1,000 exceptions? How the heck do you automate this? Yeah. You might as well just say there is no process. And that has been one of the biggest challenges in RPA being successful, is the lack of consistency in a back office process. So you're going to say, well, Darshan, are you kidding then? Well, what do we have to do? Do we have to go back to Kaizen and Six Sigma and improve the process to get it uniform? Then we can apply automation? The ideal answer is yes, but no one's going to do that because that takes too much effort, too much time. So what most companies that I have seen that do have, again, integration challenges, they will look at the happy path, the best path, the common, the typical, whatever you want to call it. They'll say 60% of my flow follows this path. Hello, bot, please follow this ideal path. If 40% of the time there's an exception, we'll kick it over to human operators. And that's been a practical way to both integrate bots into your environment and to at least deliver the 60% of the time that it is a straight through process. And that's, again, it's just practical. So a challenge has been getting that there. And the higher your ratio of straight through processing, i.e. it's nice, simple, the better your success. So that's been one. 10 years on, we do have some organizations with, I dare say, hundreds and thousands of automations. So think again of your large players, right? I mentioned Nestle, for example. They've got all globally, thousands of bots of all different flavors. How do you now maintain these bots? So those of you that are in the audience, some of you are in the development side. You're on the, hey, which business processes should we automate? So there's a whole precursor to developing a bot. Then there's the entire development testing cycle. And then once you put it into production, you have a little bit of hypercare. You're watching it for a week or a month, but then you let it go. And now it's business as usual, BAU. Simon, these days, much like maintenance in IT, the same is applied to RPA, where we have larger teams of maintenance and budgets than we have on the development side. And that's just, again, the nature of the beast. So maintenance has become huge because bots do fall down. They do fail. They do need care. They're not efficient anymore. They were designed 2 years ago, and now underlying architecture has changed. They're still having a wait state of 3 minutes when the system is refreshed in 30 seconds. We're losing time and putting no look at it.
So I could see it like this, that when you start in this, say, 5-10 years ago, the opportunity for quick wins is there. So the candidates for this are more or less, obvious, or at least not so difficult to find. And as you develop, you find, I suppose, you're implementing more of these processes, and you're starting to see the wins harder to kind of get those huge wins. So from what I'm hearing from you is that one of the biggest challenges, therefore, is maintenance of those environments. So in terms, what would you think are the best approaches for these more, say, mature RPA programs to actually maintain those large fleets of bots with a bit more, say, accuracy to really squeeze out the value and create business value?
Yeah, that's a whole topic. And so let's focus on the maintenance aspect. So I think, again, if our talk today is about the challenges facing mature organizations, there's a number of them. Again, I won't get into details, but having a robust governance framework, right? Knowing which processes make economic sense. All these are, again, challenges to scale, because look, you could have a successful automation, but if it gets run once a month for 2 minutes and you've spent $50,000 in labor, in technology, etc., is it really worth it? And yes, there are companies that have done that because, well, they thought it was good. They didn't do all the homework behind it. So let's leave those other challenges behind. You're asking about now maintenance, which I would dare say is now one of the largest challenges in mature organizations, again, is maintaining what you've already built. So again, in no particular order, I'll rattle off a few things that I see that maintenance involves. The first thing that immediately comes to mind is, are you monitoring your automations? Simple as that. You could have as few as 10, you could have 100, you could have 1,000, okay? Scale does matter, because it means, do you have your systems, your infrastructure set up to monitor that? If it's just 10, you can put one person on this thing, and basically it's like you're just watching a monitor. Oh, bot number A just kicked off. Okay, great. It's still green. Bot number 4 kicked off and then immediately stopped, and it's now flashing red. Great. One person. It's sort of like watching in a human way, it's a team leader, maybe in a call center, monitoring, walking through the aisles, making sure that folks, someone's put their hand up, they need a supervisor to come over because there's a customer that needs them. That's the kind of thing. One person, span ratio, 10 employees, that works. But if you have 1,000 bots, you can't use that span ratio. It's too expensive. So we need monitoring in a more automated way. So monitoring, reporting is very important for maintenance. Another thing, we talked about inefficiency of bots. When do we schedule regular maintenance? When do we take the bots offline? It's been 6 months. It's been a year. Can we look at the statistics of this bot? Has there been in terms of the exercise, usually take 10 minutes. It's now taking 11. Oh my God, now it's about 15 minutes over the last few months. Well, why is it slowing down? So if we have statistics, we should budget minimum once a year, if not quarterly. Let's review the health of the bots. Just regular maintenance. If you're running a public transit system, that bus that's on the street for 18 hours a day, it can't be there 365 days a year. It has to go into the maintenance yard. A mechanic has to look at it, even though there's nothing wrong, but you want to have preventative maintenance. You want to see if everything is good. Change the oil. It's no difference than for bots. I would talk also about error handling. So remember, we've always built in, if the bot handles an error, it kicks out. It could just say, hey, I give up. Hello, human, please take over. Or it can be much more sophisticated. If you hit this error, there's a code, error number 101, error number 103. It tells you why it stopped so you can have quicker diagnosis. So error handling, logging of errors makes your maintenance challenges much easier because you know why the bot stopped. But this takes some pre-planning. You have to know what kinds of issues it might run into. You build that in, you put a code, you document it, and then again in your diagnostics, it'll tell you what error code it hit. So if we're thinking about how do we have better maintenance, I've talked about monitoring, I've talked about, again, building in error codes, talking about regularly having maintenance done. A few other things, documentation. I know for a fact, having done numerous back about in the early 2000s, doing activity-based costing, documentation, better workforce control, all those kinds of things before technology really became a thing. And guess what? When you ask, what's your SOP, standard operating procedure for this process? They would pull some binder off the top shelf, and you could see it was like 5 years old the last time it was updated. I said, so is this what you're doing? Well, no, we have a whole bunch of shortcuts. That stuff is outdated. Well, why wasn't it updated? Well, we'll get around to it. Same thing for bots. Where's the documentation? When was the last version control? Is it up to date? Because that's the first place you should look to look at the health. If you have all that stuff out of date, only that developer or the maintenance IT person, it's whatever they do, and if they didn't log it, they didn't document it, you're going to have a challenge because the next person that looks at it will spend time figuring out why is this in error. So maintenance needs to be a discipline. If you're going to have an RPA program, you can't just be about finding the right processes. You can't be just about, I have a great development team and a testing team. You also have to have a great maintenance team. It could be the same people, but what are their job descriptions almost? How are they doing it? What's the regimen for maintenance, right? How many of you got, when was the last time this audit was done, and so on? I know it's a lot, Simon, but if you're going to have a healthy system, it applies to everything. Bots are no different. If you don't maintain them well, they eventually deteriorate, they fall down, and then all that investment. And then, of course, you have business units saying, hey, Simon, what's going on with my bot? Why isn't it delivering? My customers are complaining. So poor IT, typically, who runs maintenance in most organizations, they're scrambling. They're always just scrambling to fix stuff, right?
So it feels to me that this is a combination of setting in motion good practice, governance, diagnostics, and all these ways to not just say get those quick wins that come initially, but then actually to really keep the benefits of this program going. So can you suggest, and we can be open, obviously Pointy is one of these, but what are those products or tools out there that can actually help you maintain that robot workforce? And I suppose you could also touch on why some of the vendors would not be best at that or could be good at it, etc. So a broad view on that, please.
Yeah, so again, anytime we come up, again, the industry has been very dynamic. I'll boil it down to, I think, 3 key factors. So we're talking about, again, how do we make bot maintenance a much more structured aspect of your overall RPA program. And I'll tell you the 3 things that jump to mind, which I mentioned before, that if you were to do them in a haphazard manner, you'll get them done, just won't be as efficient. So first is, what data do we have? How are we reporting? Like, again, going back to Mr. Deming, if you're not measuring it, how the heck are you going to manage it? Where's the data? So now, no matter what flavor of bot you have, and I'll mention some of the biggies, you've got your UiPath, your Blue Prisms, Automation Anywhere, they all have a very, very rich database. But it's any database. It's got hundreds of fields. Now you've got to go extract the data you think is relevant. So it's all possible, but you've got to collect it, you've got to diagnose it, and you're looking for pattern differences, right? That's what is an exception. So first is, all right, do you have the data? And are you doing decent reporting? Could be daily, weekly. Most organizations that I've seen are doing monthly reports. They're looking at it by automation. This automation executed. It had a runtime. It had how many incidents, failures, success ratio, failure ratio, whatever it is that you look at. And then in terms of economic benefit, they're looking at hours back to the business typically, or dollars saved, and so on. So first, most important is, if you have 10, 100, or 1,000 bots, please have a robust reporting system that's really rich, not just for business users, but IT as well, i.e. the health of your fleet of bots. Another one usually comes into, if that's reporting after the fact, Simon, we have to look at reporting in the moment, performance. You're driving a car. It's no fun to say, last month I took it to the mechanic and the car got a clean bill of health. Great, oil was good, radiator fluid was good. I'm driving the car right now and the dashboard just went on me. The car's still working fine, but somehow I've lost my dashboard. The speedometer's gone. I don't know what my fuel level is. I don't know what my revs are. Something's going on. Car's fine. At some point, I'm not going to know what speed I'm going at, so I could be going too fast. I don't know if I'm going to run out of fuel. So that's what I mean about reporting in the moment. And so we call this performance monitoring. Again, minute by minute, hour by hour, and certainly every day. We need to have either a way, a tool, or something that can tell us in real time that 49 different automations are running right now, and they're healthy, they're not healthy, they're slow, there's a queue mix-up, or whatever it is. That then leads me to the third. Why is it that 49 are running? Are they supposed to be running? Is there a jam on resources? So it leads me to talk about scheduling, and sometimes it's also called orchestrating your automations. Mm-hmm. But really, just like most humans, let's say we're still in the 9 to 5 world. Most people will commute, spend an hour on the highway, get to the office. If you still go to the office, it's 9 o'clock. Well, we know the schedule is 9, and we know most businesses will close at 5. And then there's rush hour in the morning and in the evening. Is that how bots are running? What's the schedule for bots? Do we have to all have them come alive at 6 a.m.? Why can't they be running at 3 a.m.? Oh, well, there's nothing in the queue at that time, and so on. Do we understand the dynamics of the job enough that we can schedule them efficiently? I have seen, Simon, one dedicated bot that'd be costing thousands of dollars in license fees, dedicated for one automation that just sits there all day, and it really only kicks off if there's a need. We could actually have that license, that bot, doing multitasks. It's sort of saying, oh, if there's something there, I'll go do it. But if not, I'm actually multitasking on something else. And so that's very straightforward logic, but lots of organizations just say, you know what, I don't have tool, the knowledge, or I don't want to take the risk. I'm just going to dedicate that. And I think that's inefficient because you could be having much more robust activities. So those are some of the, I guess, the 3 top things that come to mind if you're looking at a tool to help you do these things. Now, you're going to say, Darshan, aren't these things built into the platform? Sure they are. So again, we'll go back to a UiPath or a Blue Prism or an AA, and then there's others. They will all say, of course we have orchestration. Of course we do reporting. Of course you can get this. Sure, they do. Question is, it's a tick the box, right? They've got it, but is it robust enough? And so the marketplace is very efficient. There would not be aftermarket tools if there was not a need. If the incumbents were providing the best tool sets, aftermarket companies in this space would not survive. There would be no business. That's not the case. We have a whole bunch of folks in this space that are thriving because the incumbents have not focused on these needs. And to be fair, their job is, let's get the best bot out there. The aftermarket, the maintenance aspect is not something that they have to really spend a lot of time on. And so companies like your Catalyst RPA, Smart Roby, Pointy, as you, of course, you're from, C2, which used to be called RPA Supervisor in my day when I was really working closely with them. They're all examples of good tools that really simplify and give you this confidence, like sort of you're in the cockpit, you've got a dashboard, you can see the health of everything. And so these days, if you don't have a good tool, then you're either overstaffing the maintenance function, or you're not staffing it very well and you're going to have failures.
Maybe because I have a couple of questions, but just for my last one might be, do you have any concrete examples of companies that have perhaps created, you don't have to name names particularly, but cases where they've really taken that on board and driven some serious business value by taking a few of these steps that you mentioned? Of course, we all know that tools aren't the answer in and of themselves. It's the processes that they work with, and the management and the reporting, etc., and the interpretation as well, both by the technology and by the people who use it. But you have good stories there. Maybe one you could think of where companies have become more, like, genuinely seen real efficiency drive because they took it to the next step.
I'll give you one example. This is a large regional North American bank and credit union and co-op. They scaled their program from, this is a Blue Prism client, from about 40 bots/licenses to 450 in the space of just about 2.5-3 years. This is phenomenal. And by the way, it wasn't because they had a whole bunch of budget left over at the end of the year or something. They did it with the full blessing of the business units that were going to pay for this. And how they did this was a number of the factors that I mentioned, and I work very closely with them. So a really bunch of smart people. And before the tools were even available, they knew that they had to have discipline as they were, first of all, choosing the right automations to develop. So that was great. But once they were in circulation, once they were in production, then how to maintain them. And without a dedicated tool, they actually had dedicated people. So if they give you a span ratio, if for every 10 developers, they would allocate 2 for maintenance, dedicated. And this is maybe 4 years ago, unheard of. Like, you don't really dedicate, but they knew that this was going to be, and that ratio, they kept putting more people into maintenance while keeping a robust development arm. That helped them generate the data, really good reporting, excellent relationships with the business, telling them exactly how the bot was performing. And they introduced internally a concept of preventative maintenance by taking a bot offline every quarter to just diagnose its health. In other words, they would literally go back to the studio canvas and look at every step to see, is this still appropriate? Is there a better way? Could we skip this step and go another one? Just because it was architected a year ago doesn't mean it's correct today. Sometimes that review would last an hour. That's it. They would sit down with their supervisor, walk through it, ideas, nope, it's fine. Sometimes that would get and say, you know what, there is an idea here. And they would put it into a redevelopment process. Fantastic best practices. I really commended them for that kind of work. So now imagine having a tool to do some of these things. Again, preventative maintenance, i.e., what if you could put an AI tool that is looking at data from the last 90 days, minute by minute or hour by hour? Humans, it would take a lot of effort. We'd have to graph it and so on. But AI could do this in seconds. And it's saying, hey, this is an aberration. This aberration is starting to get a little bit off standard deviation. Guess what? I'm going to set an alert. Something is not right with this. My pattern recognition is telling me something is not right. Now, before the entire car falls down at the side of the highway, that engine light is going on. Please stop, pull over, something major about to happen. That is what modern tools can do today. Some of the ones I just mentioned.
Darshan, this has been fantastic. Thank you for your time. Now, we still have a few minutes, and I've got a couple of questions, one from Andra, and he's asking, how do you see RPA evolving in the next 5 years, particularly with the rise of AI and machine learning? So I think that's a good question. I'd love to hear your answer too.
I knew that question would come up because I'll tell you, it's a very topical question, and I too am very curious. And again, we live in an amazing age, Simon. I mean, I'm sure every generation says this, but I am so happy to be where we are with technology advancing so quickly, and you never know where it's going to go, but it's just thrilling. Again, AI, look at what it's done to on the Gen AI side. What I see on RPA and automation is cognitive ability. Humans are wonderful at simply looking at a couple of things and we just do it. if we had machine intelligence that could simply look at, like imagine, say, Simon, tell me how you enter your emails. Tell me how you do your scheduling and so on. If I'm looking at you, if I'm the buddy sitting next to you, okay, I think I got that. Let me try it out. To program this in traditional RPA is a lot of work. Every step has to be documented. What if this, what if that? Cognitive says, take a look, give me 5 examples, I got it. And I'm not following a sequence of steps. I'm doing it in a very different human-like way that just makes sense. I see AI in the next 5 years adding dramatic capability through cognitive ability to RPA platforms. Now, is that the incumbents? They're all saying yes. I mean, again, UiPath or Blue Prism, everybody's throwing the AI word out there. Or could we be surprised that a completely new platform comes up that is AI first and starts to take market share from the incumbents? I'm not sure. Again, just because you have a great tool doesn't mean you're going to get market share. Remember, it's all about the marketing spend too. So I see over the next 5 years, AI really doing cognitive. But I also see things like a lot of users, everyday users. I joined the business world, Simon, at a time when not a single person had a desktop. Forget laptops weren't even around. We're talking the mid-'80s. And when I first started working at Nestle, the only computers were electronic data processing typewriters with our secretary. That's what they were called in those days. Today, you can't enter a business without a laptop. Everybody knows how to use an Excel to do spreadsheets or to write your own memos using Word. But just 30, 40 years ago, it was completely unknown. Imagine every user saying, I need this process to be done. They literally will have a camera, say, I need this done, or they'll show it how, and that's it. So within certain guardrails, obviously IT still has to play a huge role, but within guardrails, I see business users using AI, RPA, to simply just automate their work and free up time to what they really need to do, which is human, which is client relationships and so on that we're not there yet for computers. But the everyday processing, I have this report to run. I have to format it in a certain way. I've got to get the balance sheet ready, which means taking this data, putting it in here. That's where I see business users say, done. Just like Excel has transformed accounting, I see AI and RPA really enabling business users to do this. So those are some of the things that come to mind for a very exciting future in the next few years.
Just a question on my own. Do you think that people in that RPA space, should they look at doing programs themselves with AI to see what they can do, or should they rely on the vendors that they're working with now? I mean, because I know that players like UiPath and Blue Prism, they will be relatively well funded. They will be able to try these experiments. But what would you recommend in those kind of environments for companies who have an established RPA setup?
It's a classic buy versus build argument. And I think every company should go through that healthy discussion internally. But the reason, again, tools exist is that someone has already encountered. Imagine if you're even a large company and you're having to say, okay, let me make my own maintenance kind of tool. Darshan mentioned reporting. He mentioned performance optimization. I could do that. Hey, IT, I need a bunch of folks to develop it. Great. When you buy a tool, you're getting input from hundreds of customers that have already baked in their desires into that platform. Mm-hmm. Because again, the releases are every quarter, right? And platforms have to thrive, they have to keep improving their feature set. So would you rather spend money internally just solving your own needs, or get something that already the market says, hey, this already solves a lot of my issues? So I would say, go ahead, experiment, but it's just really the math and the logic is if you go with a product that's already been built, you're going to get much bigger bang for your buck. Will it do everything in a customized way that you want? No, but it's an 80-20. Get 80% done at a far lower cost. The 20%, no. Either do it internally or have the vendor customize something for you. It's pretty straightforward logic in my view.
Great. So Darshan, thank you so much for your time today and for going through those topics that are relevant for scaling RPA in large organizations. I was just wondering if you had anything to finish off with that you might want to share regarding what companies can do or keep a special eye out for, and then we can probably just wrap it up.
I guess one last piece I'd just like to mention, Simon, for again our audience, folks that may have large programs. Folks, you've spent a ton of money, you've made huge investments, and you can't just scrap it, and it can't just be business as usual. So the only way is a way forward. And forward means not doing what you've been doing, but it is doing things differently. And so please always embrace, and again, the folks that are here on this call, Simon, are here because, again, they're interested in ideas and so on. So please never stop learning and trying new things. This technology, this space will only continue, I think, to evolve and stay curious, but always look to say, how can I learn from others? Because there's always room to improve. So that's my sort of overall advice in this space. It's been great. It's been fantastic. Thank you for the questions. We probably could go on for a couple more hours on all kinds of topics.
Well, I would like that very, very much. But Teresa says it's time for us to wrap up. So it's been such a pleasure, and thank you to the audience for your questions and for your for coming. And if you have any questions for us, obviously just drop me or Darshan a line. So thanks a lot, and I'm sure follow up afterwards with some feedback on what we covered here today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Simon.
Thanks, Darshan.